Hi, my name is John, and I'd like to take some time to talk about my brain injury. I want to do this because, number one, you will discover that I really did have a brain injury, and I am walking the walk. Number two, you may find that your story syncs with mine. While our stories are not the same at all, you may well find similarities. And three, hopefully you will find that Hope Beyond Trauma, Janie and I can help with your particular situation and your combination of brain injury issues. My injury was in 1973. Yep, a damn long time ago. At about 2 in the afternoon. I was 21 years old, going to college and working part-time to meet expenses. Our work was rebuilding a warehouse that had been burned out to its shell. The warehouse was 2 stories and a basement and was 28 feet tall from the roof to the basement floor. My boss, coworker, and I were just finishing lunch in the building and were headed back to work. I picked up 2 sheets of 4x8 plywood and carried them to the edge of the mostly finished roof and then just stepped off. As my boss was the captain of the fire department, he knew to call them as they had the only training for such an event. My mom asked the neurosurgeon when she got to the hospital about my prognosis. He said I had a 30 to 40% chance of survival if I survived the operation. Then my mom asked, "What about his brain?" He shrugged his shoulders, which was the most truthful thing he could say, as so few people survived that no one could know what would happen with me. I do remember one event that happened 2 weeks before my fall, although that was an isolated event. Therefore, my pre-traumatic amnesia was longer than 2 weeks. A blood clot called a subdural hematoma formed over my left temporal and occipital lobes. This is at the back of the left side of my brain. As this was 1973, they didn't have the scanning equipment they have now, so they didn't know how to proceed until the pupils of my eyes became fixed and dilated. Then they took me to the operating room to remove the blood clot. So I stayed in the hospital for 2 months. I only remember 2 weeks of my stay, so my post-traumatic amnesia, which is the time until I could make and keep memories, was 6 weeks. Sometime in that 2 week conscious period, I got a visit from a woman who came into my room and said, "You don't know me." And I'm glad she said that because I did have trouble recognizing people I should know. But I had a be like yours, and I'm here to tell you that it does get better. I've kept that memory close to me for over 44 years now. Knowing nothing about brain injury, I wasn't even aware that brain injury was the root cause of my issues for over 10 years. I didn't know that I shouldn't go back to college until I recovered enough. I was living with my parents and started commuting about 30 miles to college that fall term. I pretty quickly discovered that I needed organization, while still not knowing the full extent of my focus issues. I carried a notebook with me with my class papers, and more importantly, the page with my list of classes and classrooms, so I would know where my class was. A few times I left that notebook at home, and I had to walk up and down the halls looking at each classroom until I saw a bunch of familiar faces. That would be my classroom. I shudder now when I think about this. I was very confused with my lack of direction after I left school. So I took machine shop jobs and got increasingly depressed. I found that my university had classes in interpersonal communication, and I took 3 that year. The first was an overview of group counseling in an encounter group setting. The second was more of a philosophical class, and the third was a week-long live-in encounter group class. I learned so much about myself in that week-long group, and that knowledge has carried over with me until now. Some weeks after that class, I went back to my teacher's house. The two were man and wife, as I was considering suicide. One of the professors said that I should seriously consider my choice because it was such a permanent one. I did, and I'm still alive. Because I had no knowledge of brain injury, I didn't know why I was so confused. About 1983, I discovered brain injury. By the way, that's 10 years of ignorance and denial. I said denial because I had read many doctors and hospital reports that mentioned my brain injury, but I honestly did not know that brain injury was the cause of my troubles. Amazing when I think about it. When I found brain injury, the pieces all fell together. I knew then why I was having so much trouble with focusing. Now, this was not nearly the end of my education about brain injury. Oh no! I've been fighting changes in myself for nearly 45 years now, and I don't think I'm done. My life has been full of struggles, including struggles with work. My best job by far was as the traumatic brain injury case manager at the Traumatic Brain Injury Project at the Santa Clara Valley Medical Center in San Jose, California. But even there I had issues. Once I yelled at my office mate and was reprimanded, and nearly every time I went to the hospital for the brain injury clinic every week, I'd forget something and have to return for it. It became quite a joke, but I was embarrassed by the constant forgetting. My shining achievement at the project was the T-Bird, the Traumatic Brain Injury Research Directory. When I was assigned the task, I was hesitant, as I knew it would take up so much of my time. But my supervisors thought it was important enough, and that T-Bird has helped thousands, as it was posted in print and later online. I still feel very good about it. I later worked for the California State Department of Rehabilitation for 7 years. I was disability retired for that job because I couldn't keep up with the caseload, although I was hired in part because I was a brain injury survivor. Just before my supervisor started finding fault with my work and later retired me, she said that she talked with another supervisor who told her that it's very difficult working with a brain injury survivor. I believe that planted the seed that led to the loss of my job. Now, I work with Hope Beyond Trauma, and my work with them allows me to give back like that woman in the hospital did for me. I hope you keep coming back for more of these videos, and please give me feedback on them so I can offer you the optimal assistance on your recovery. My life goal is to help you and other survivors at least avoid at least some of the crap I went through. Toodaloo!